All right, hello again, and thanks so much for being with me this Saturday. I'm Frederica Whitfield. We start with breaking news of another growing drama inside the White House. More leaks giving us a behind-the-scenes look as Press Secretary Sarah Sanders berates her communications team. It comes after a White House aide, Kelly Sadler, dismissed McCain's lack of support for Trump's new CIA director pick, saying it doesn't matter because, and this was the aide saying this, he's, quote, dying anyway, during a meeting on Thursday. And now we are learning Sanders privately scolded her team during a staff meeting on Friday, not necessarily for the original tasteless comment, but for the fact that someone leaked that information. CNN's Boris Sanchez joining us now live from the White House. So, Boris, what more have you learned?
Hey there, Fred. Yeah, despite the fact that Sarah Sanders has been hesitant to publicly criticize these comments apparently made by Kelly Sadler about Senator John McCain, in private, at least among staffers, she has apparently called them inappropriate, according to a number of sources. Though one source indicates that the nature of that meeting yesterday with these communication staffers had more to do with Sanders being upset that that leak was put out there in the first place. She apparently chided them, taking exception to the idea that someone leaked this information to hurt Kelly Sadler in public. We should point out that Sanders sort of carried a similar tone when she spoke publicly about these comments, being upset about the leak, saying that she wouldn't validate that sort of talk, and going as far as to say that the White House would not apologize for this remark. Listen to this from Sarah Sanders at the podium yesterday.
Certainly, there is not a tone set here. We have a respect for all Americans, and that is what we try to put forward in everything we do, both in word and in action.
Why not just apologize to Senator McCain?
Again, I'm not going to get into a back and forth because people want to create issues of leaked staff meetings. Go ahead.
Budget Director Mick Mulvaney was asked about Kelly Sadler, how he felt about the comment that she made. He essentially said that it was an inappropriate joke, but that Sadler should have the right to speak candidly when she's in a private meeting, and that she shouldn't be fired for making the statement. Here's Mick Mulvaney.
I think the remarks are awful, but let's look at this in context. That was said in a private meeting inside the White House. It's not like you might say something really nasty about me off the air, and it really doesn't have that much impact. You come on air and say it officially, now that's a problem. This was a private meeting inside the White House. It was a joke. It was a badly considered joke, an awful joke that she said fell flat, and I get all that, but really,
do you think that's right?
I don't. I honestly don't. You have to have some freedom to speak in a private meeting, to speak candidly. We've all said things in private, especially in smaller groups that we work with, that we would never say publicly. I think she's handled it appropriately.
And Fred, we should point out that another thing we've heard from multiple sources is that in light of this comment, Sadler's job is not at risk. It appears she will remain on in her current role.
All right, Boris Sanchez, thank you so much. All right, all of this as the back and forth continues between Trump's outspoken lawyer and mouthpiece, Rudy Giuliani, and the escalating White House chaos and confusion. This morning, Giuliani, once again, backtracking on his comments that directly contradicted the White House, this time on the AT&T and Time Warner merger. Time Warner is a parent company of CNN. Giuliani originally saying on Friday, Trump personally denied the deal. The White House jumping into damage control mode this morning, saying not the case. Then 1 hour later, Giuliani is scrambling to clarify his original comments. CNN politics reporter Jeremy Herb joining us now. So, Jeremy, what is going on?
Yeah, Rudy Giuliani has the White House back on the defensive over his comments to Huffington Post last night when he told them that President Trump denied the AT&T Time Warner merger. Now, he was trying to argue that Michael Cohen's work for AT&T did not have any impact on the merger or on swaying Trump, but he also contradicted what the White House has been saying for months. And Sarah Huckabee Sanders today had to clarify again, saying that the DOJ was the ones who denied the deal. And then an hour later, Giuliani called CNN's Dana Bash to walk back that comment and basically said that the president told Giuliani that he was not directly involved in denying the deal. So the White House has said for months that the Justice Department is the one that was behind this, but the president on the campaign trail and in his time in the White House, he the president has been opposed or has expressed his opposition to the merger.
So then I wonder, does this latest round kind of highlight that the White House isn't always in step with what the president may be conveying to his personal representation? Or does this underscore that there is a communication problem between the president and his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani?
Yeah, I think it's clear that they're not on the same page. This is the latest in a number of instances where Rudy Giuliani has been out on his own and contradicted what we've heard from the White House. You had the Stormy Daniels payment, you had his talk about the North Korean hostages, and so it's, it's unclear to see whether Rudy is kind of the mouthpiece here for the president, kind of channeling what he really thinks, or, if he's just kind of out freelancing on his own and making these missteps. Either way, it's the White House has to clean up after this, as we saw this morning with the latest statement. So it's certainly putting them into a difficult position.
All right. Thanks so much, Jeremy Herb. Appreciate it. All right, let's talk even further on this. CNN political commentator and Republican strategist Alice Stewart with me, and CNN political commentator and Democratic strategist Keith Boykin. All right, good to see you both.
Hi, Fred.
All right, so Alice, how do you see it? Is there a real disconnect between, the White House and the messaging from, an agreement between Trump and Rudy Giuliani, or is there a problem in the messaging between the president and Giuliani?
Well, it is a problem, Fred. Look, I think someone needs to pull this mouthpiece aside and tell him to shut his mouth until he gets all of the facts straight. Look, from a communication standpoint, even under the best of circumstances, if all the trains are running on time with a story, whether it be tax cuts or immigration, everything is great as long as everyone is on the same page. The problems come up when you have conflicting stories and one person is saying one thing and another person is saying something else, and it throws the entire message off course. And here we have Giuliani, not just with this case, saying that the president denied the merger, he didn't interfere, he knew about the Stormy Daniels payment before he denied it. These are problems that can be corrected or avoided if he would just get his facts straight on the front end and stop talking out of school or about information he has absolutely no knowledge about.
So I wonder, Keith, because I feel like this is, really a broken record, because if it's not Rudy Giuliani, then there's somebody else where it seems to be, is catching the blame on the whole messaging problem. But what's consistent is there are mixed messages. What does the president really feel? What does he really think? What's the action really? So what's really the problem here?
Donald Trump, a fish rots from the head. There's never been so much chaos and miscommunication in any modern White House, in my recollection. And it all stems from Donald Trump. He is inconsistent in his own messaging. He can't stay on message, whatever the message is for the day. And so it's not a surprise that you have press secretaries and communications directors and lawyers and staff members and cabinet members consistently in conflict with what Donald Trump says, or in occasion they are consistent with Trump on one day, and the next day he changes his position. So it's impossible to keep up with where he is, because the man is a reflection of conflict and contradiction. The problem, though, larger problem for Donald Trump, is that he continues to pick these people who are not good for him. He picked not only Rudy Giuliani, but before that he picked Michael Cohen as his lawyer. He's paying off $130,000 to porn stars. He picked Ty Cobb, I think it was, who was having a meeting in a restaurant in Washington, D.C. and was overheard by reporters revealing his strategy. I mean, Donald Trump said he's going to pick the best people. He picks all the worst people instead. He's not very good at picking good people to represent him.
Okay, and then we just heard this report about, the communications press secretary for the White House, Sarah Sanders, berating her staff over leaks, namely about the White House aide who, used some very offensive language in which to describe John McCain in his current, state with a terminal illness. So, Alice, is the anger being placed correctly? Mad that there's the leaks, but then the White House is not necessarily conveying that it's mad that this language was used, that he's dying.
No, Fred, look, it's bad when you have leaked stories about a leaked story, and that's where we have a problem with this administration. And in my view, the comments that were made about Senator McCain were disgusting and despicable. And look, it's not a surprise that under the administration of President Bone Spur that people may have a cavalier attitude about a war hero like Senator McCain. But it's one thing to think something this disparaging and this hurtful, but it's another to say it out loud. And in my view, I can't imagine under any circumstances how someone couldn't apologize for this from an administration standpoint. But the fact is, clearly they're standing by her, and they're not going to back down. But I would be certainly more concerned about what was actually said than how it had gotten out to the press.
Because it seems, Keith, at least what's being reported, that anger is being conveyed, anger at the leaks, but not necessarily anger about the language used.
Yeah, I mean, it's not surprising because Donald Trump himself doesn't apologize when he makes mistakes or errors. Instead, he blames the media and blames the leakers instead of taking account of why people are upset in the first place or why stories are being leaked. In this case, this could have been a one-day story, a few-hour story, if someone had just told this woman in the White House, look, you need to apologize or we need to fire you, one or the other. And that would have helped move the story on. But the White House refused to do that.
She apologized to, Meghan, the daughter, not enough?
No, I mean a public apology, and the White House needs to apologize itself. I'm not a big fan of John McCain on his political views, but I would never say something like that about John McCain or any other public figure. And if I did, I think I should be held accountable for that as well. And I'm not even in the White House, so the fact that we're holding the White House to a lower standard than we hold other public officials or other people in our society says a lot. But Donald Trump hasn't apologized still for 5.5 years of lying about Barack Obama's birth certificate. He still hasn't apologized for lying for 20-some odd years about the Central Park Five, who he wrongly accused of raping a woman in Central Park. Donald Trump has a history of doing bad things and not apologizing. He even told Frank Luntz during an interview during the campaign that he's never sought forgiveness from God, even though he calls himself a Christian, because he doesn't feel like he needs to do that. That is who Donald Trump is. It is part of his DNA, and he's infected and infused that into the White House as well.
Keith Boykin, Alice Stewart, we'll leave it right there.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
Thank you.